Our next guest cites faith as the reason we need kinder and gentler political discourse. On-camera press briefings at the White House have been pretty hit and miss recently, and that has the White House Correspondents Associated frustrated, and the journalists believe Americans should be able to watch and listen to government officials as they face questions. Unofficial record keeper Mark Knoller of CBS Radio says that since June 1st, there have been 7 on-camera briefings, 20 off-camera briefings, and 3 days without a briefing at all. Joining us now, someone who knows something about briefings, Mike McCurry, former White House press secretary to Bill Clinton and professor of public theology at Wesley Theological Seminary. Welcome to the program.
Oh, it's great to be with you.
Thank you so much for your time. You and Ari Fleischer, former press secretary for George W. Bush, co-wrote Advice to the Media in the Columbia Journalism Review. And one of the things that you said was that you think that press briefings should remain, but it should not be televised. As somebody who sat in that briefing room when there were televised briefings and loved them, I don't know what you're saying. Why would you want that?
That's not saying not televised, saying not live televised.
So delay.
If the live television makes it into a show, and then everyone has to perform.
Grandstanding.
Both sides, the press secretary and the reporters. But it's a briefing, and it's supposed to be a way in which you gather information, and you need to go check it against other sources. I would argue probably Ari would not argue, but I would argue in this administration, you need to check what you hear against other sources and then report. And then we get a report that kind of brings together all that the journalist brings to the picture, but it's not the entire story, and it's not a news event in and of itself. So that's what we were after there.
Well, I understand that because you get people who want to keep asking the same question over and over again to get that going back and forth, the tension going back and forth.
Sometimes the TV correspondents from different networks all ask the same question so they can be on camera
asking the question. Right.
And what is that about?
What is that? What else do you think should change?
I think we need a lot more truth, content, factual information about what the president, the White House is really doing. That's what this briefing should be about. It ought to be about the content of what the government does. Back in the day when I was press secretary a long time ago, my daughter likes to say, "Dad, that was like the last century."
Yeah, right. So, like, oh, so old, Dad.
That's right. But at that time, we had a lot of the agencies of government had their own briefings, and that's, gone away now. And the American people suffer because they don't learn more about what's going on in government. So much of it funnels through the White House. So the White House press secretary and the White House communications apparatus has to be able to talk about a lot of different things happening in our government, and it ought to be much more focused on that content and on just the basic things that the American people need to know about what is their government doing. Not the spin, not the theater of politics.
I have a hard time.
Although I'm pretty good.
I was just going to say, you were pretty good at spin. This is a little bit, of a hindsight 2020.
You will appreciate that's now called the doctrine of atonement. So I am like atoning for my previous sins.
Speaking of faith, what role do you think that faith should have in this instance in politics and in communication between the White House and the press, if any?
Well, faithful people. I happen to be a practicing Methodist, but I have deep appreciation for the Catholic tradition of social and economic justice and how matters of faith inform how we work together and bring common good to a community. And we need more of that. Sometimes religion has been used as a political weapon in our politics. And what I would like to see is faith informing the way in which we bring people together and try to resolve our differences and actually change the tone of our politics. It's very bitter, very polarized. I think everybody in America would agree with that.
Do you think since the 90s, since you were in there to now, that it's worse?
Yeah, it's gotten worse, and it probably got worse while I was there, and I probably contributed myself to making it worse by being a little too much of a spin doctor sometimes.
Do you regret that?
Oh, I very much do.
Why?
Very much do. Because I think I probably contributed through the whole televised briefing. The briefings were not televised until I got there. And once they became kind of this televised spectacle every day, people began to posture and they began to act out roles rather than genuinely, authentically thinking about how do we bring people together and do something that will help the country understand what's going on. Most people just say, just tell me what the facts are.
Right, and stop the blather and
stop the spin. And so I contributed.
That's your next book, by the way, Stop the Spin.
Yeah. Actually, a guy from the Washington Post wrote a book mostly about me. I've never written a book because he can more or less write it for me, called The Spin Cycle. And I look back and I said, well, that's not what I want to be known for. I want to be known to kind of bring people together and do different things together.
Good. It was a pleasure talking to you,
Mike
McCurry. Thank you so much, former White House press secretary to President Bill Clinton.
Thank you.